Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Art Show, featuring Victoria Chick, a contemporary figurative artist and early 19th and 20th century print collector. Welcome, everyone. It is the third Saturday, and we love third Saturdays because we get to chat with artist Victoria Chick, and she always takes us on an interesting art history journey. I never knew art history would be so much fun until Victoria started doing these podcasts with us over a number of years now. I think 18 years, Victoria, you've been on Big Blend Radio.
Oh, yeah.
I know, and we're so young.
Like that. Yeah,
it is.
I know. I was looking at it the other day, and it's hard to believe. You know, time does really go fast when you're having fun, and I always think these are fun.
And yeah, it's fun, and it's learning, and it's just, if you ever said to me as a kid that, you know, you're going to be interested in art history, I go like, really? No. But then again, Nancy had this beautiful collection of books about the masters in music and in art, and the masters each, it was like just a really nice encyclopedia of it. And like Rembrandt was in there and stuff like that. And I thought I would just sit like for an afternoon and go over books like that. So I suppose it was just the term of it, isn't it? Because it's history. But at the same time, I think our country is doing really good. Have raised up our numbers of history travel, and that includes the arts. Do you know that 60% of Americans are traveling as road tripping through their country now? And it's on a rise. And 80% of those 60% seek historical and cultural places. And so why do I bring this all up? Because art history is part of tourism and travel. And the lady that Victoria is going to talk about today, the artist, she did a lot of travel, and she covered our national parks in her art. But Victoria is also working really hard, as a lot of you already know. But, you know, I like to bring this topic up every time I can. Victoria and her group of amazing friends who are all together as volunteers, they're all working on the Southwest Regional Museum of Art and Art Center, actually finding a building to make this happen. And they have art collections already, and you can always donate more. But this is going to be a fine art museum and educational center in Southwest New Mexico, because there is no actual fine art museum, you know, that actually covers that region. And there's a lot of small towns, and this really puts Silver City, New Mexico on the map in a bigger way, which is already an amazing, thriving art community. Did I do good? I'm in a mode.
You did very well. Yeah.
It's very cool to see this grow. And so this does tie together, doesn't it, when you think about heritage travel and people going to see the arts?
Well, it does. You know, they're important of all kinds. And people really love to go to museums, and of all kinds. So I love what you say about museums. I appreciate you mentioning our museum. And you know, we're a small group. We're trying to pull this together. We've got all of the innards of the museum as far as collections go to start, and we're looking for a building, and so that's our project right now.
I love it. Everyone, you can go to southwest-art-museum.org. And while you do that, also go to victoriachick.com. Those links are in the episode notes as always, but take a look at this. And, cause it's the end of June, and some of us, our budgets change over in a few days. So if you need to move some budgets around and, make some donations before the end of the year, as you look at that, July to December, half of the year, go to southwest-art-museum.org. All right. So that's my big plug of the day. But the other part of why I brought this up is that once this museum is there, and when you go on the website, you can actually see the art, some of the art that they have. But when the museum is there, you're going to be able to see the art of an artist that we're going to be talking about today. And her name is Fanny Adele Watson, and she was born in 1873, passed away in 1947. So we love digging into artist women of the past, because it, wasn't always looked at as, women weren't always the artists, right? It was always looked at for the men, right, Victoria? At one point in art.
Well, that's when you look at our history from a book, you're exactly on spot there when you say men were in the books, because they were, and the women were tended to be ignored early on. But there were a lot of women artists, and Fanny Adele Watson was one of them. She, though, was kind of unique in what she drew and what she painted. And I'm going to tell you about that because she changed her style and her interest over the life of the lifespan. So anyway, I can talk about when she was very young, if you like, and she was born in Ohio. So, but when her father died when she was pretty young, she was just 7 years old. And so she and her mom moved to Pasadena, California. Now, I don't know why they did that. That would have been very, very early. California was not even orange groves by then. There was some. But anyway, she moved there. Probably they had family there or something. But she didn't stay there long because by the time she was 19, she was back in New York. She wanted to pursue art, and so for her, living in Pasadena, California, which was at that time just mainly fields. She moved back to New York, and she went to the Art Students League to get her education. She was there for quite a few years. Then when she was in her early 20s, she went to Paris. And she studied with a guy. His name was Raphael Cohen. I don't know that he's nobody's favorite famous artist. I had never heard of him before, but he apparently was a good painter. He painted in an academic style, and but he was at that time in history. There was a lot of influence of French artwork and Japanese artwork. Japanese artwork had come in the late 19th century to France, and they really the French really responded to Japanese art. So he was kind of influenced by that. He did the compositions were very graceful, and they moved a lot. Just the eye moved around the canvas. Anyway, she studied with him for quite a few years, and then she started showing her work back in New York. And it was an amazing time because although women artists were not very numerous, and we hear that they weren't very successful early on, she had consistent success. Everybody loved her work. She got rave reviews, and to get rave reviews in New York is not easy. Some of the things they would say is they liked the movement in her pictures. They liked the vitality that she had. She developed a sense of rhythm, and of course, she was using female figures at this time, and they were kind of ghostly. I'll call them. So they kind of danced around the canvas. Anyway, they were very, very popular. She got a lot of reviews. Beginning in the 1930s, things started changing because she had formed a friendship with Kahlil Gibran, the poet. And,
I like him.
Yeah. And he was a very spiritual person, and so was she. And so it's really easy to see why they were friends. Because of their friendship, I think she started looking at things differently. She started trips, and so one of these trips was to Zion National Park. Another trip, might have been the same trip. She went to Bryce Canyon National Park, and she was very, very taken with the rock formations. So she started, and when she looked at these, she would see them as entities, like human entities. She would do these rocks. She would modify the rocks in Zion to make them a little bit more anthropomorphic than they actually were. So she started getting a lot of success with exhibiting those kinds of paintings and drawing.
Well, she did paintings and lithographs, and because I've also, and everyone, Victoria's done a write-up about Fanny, and you can see that it's linked in the episode notes. It's actually on our National Park Traveling, the website, which is nationalparktravel.com. So I think that's something people, will nationalparktraveling.com, sorry, and people can see because she's one of those artist women. When we think about art in the parks, I've not heard her name, and I sure want to let people know because I've seen her work, like you were saying, Bryce, but she also went to Garden of the Gods in Colorado. So she is definitely into those. Well, what's interesting, she's doing these rock formations, right? And the geology,
Right.
but she makes them almost the different parts of the rock dance like she does with the dancing women art that she was doing.
Yes, and
Amazing.
it's her rock formations that she anthropomorphizes. They're very subtle. They're very feminine too. I might add. They are. She takes the curves of the rocks and the crevices in the rocks that she sees, and she I'm sure she modifies them slightly, but they're very human. They think, well, I mean, they're just a totally different way than anyone else at the time was seeing landscape. So her work was very unique at the time. And it was very popular too. It was radical in a way, but it reached people's psyche, I think, at a different level than most artwork does.
And I do want to let people know that she was really known mostly as Adele Watson, and there's an actress in the same time frame, Adele Watson, and she's from Minnesota, so it's not her. Because when you look at that, I'm like, that's a movie, that is a character that keeps popping up as the main thing. Do you mind if I go backwards in the conversation back to Raphael Colin? He is incredibly fascinating as an artist because, I'm looking at the way he incorporates light and he really plays on white to me. It could just be the way the art is, but he's making white have different shades of white. Whiter shades of pale. Yeah. Here we go for some music. But it's really fascinating what he does. And then, because also women are at that era, if he was painting, because it looks like he was painting even older than he was painting history at the time too. It looks like in some of it. But I wonder about his work in regards to Japan, because then there was also what was happening with the ladies there, the geisha ladies and things like that, how they were always played on white with their makeup. So I was kind of like, woo. And then when I see her, when I see Adele's work with the dancers and that side of it, I find it all kind of connected in a way that she probably learned a lot about light and movement from him. Because he has things that are stoic that aren't supposed to move, but they move. He's fantastic.
When she was doing lithographs, of course, they were in black and white. But when she did painting, they were described as being neutral in tone. And part of that is there's a lot of white in every color to modify it. Not exactly a pastel, but going in that direction. So she may have some influence from him with the way she was painting.
Yeah, I think so. That's what I was looking at. And I just think the white part, I wonder if Japan influenced him on using white, the way he used white, because of the way the geisha girls do their white makeup on their face and their bodies, like how they do that. And it's not just for geisha girls, but there's a whiteness. And some different cultures do use white as the prime source of makeup, which is interesting.
When you look at what was going on in Europe at the time, it's logical to assume that his white influence did come from Japan, because there was no other painters that were using a lot of white at the time in Europe.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, when I'm thinking about that, that's interesting how it can, you go to one place and it's something completely different. It's not some instructor telling you, now you're going to put this kind of white on your light. You're going over, observing something and going, wow, they're using white in a whole different way. It's kind of interesting to me, when you look at history that way and how travel can influence a whole change of style, in art. So let's go back to her. So Adele, she goes to the parks, and you had written in your article about Arthur Miller, the LA Times art critic.
Okay.
And he said, Miss Watson sees landscape in terms of the soul of man. That's amazing.
Well, don't take the word man literally. I know.
Human. Yeah. Kind of thing. Yeah. But that's beautiful.
Arthur Millier,
Oh, Millier, sorry. Yes.
yeah, that's okay. He was a fabulous printmaker, but he was also the critic of the Los Angeles Times newspaper, the art critic. So that was kind of neat because I know he knew what he was talking about when he was describing her work. And we have an Arthur Millier print in our collection here at the Southwest Regional Museum too. So I think when we display these, at some point we are going to have a show that shows who influenced who,
I love that.
It'll be fun to produce that kind of an exhibition.
Yeah, I think it is because just, teachers really do have influence. And sometimes it's the smallest thing that creates something completely new. And so to really kind of look at the teachers, the great teachers of art in time, and sometimes it could just be someone said something that you didn't think of that has nothing to do with anything. It's like the gods must be crazy, kind of. That's what happens in my brain, right? In that movie. But when I go
Go ahead. Go ahead. Besides the Zion National Park and Bryce Canyon National Park, she also spent a lot of time in Maine, and the park there, the national park in Maine. I can't think of the name of it, but she did a lot of. Okay, thank you. She did a lot of paintings for the rocks, the coastline meet the sea, and that particular one that you've got is from there, I believe.
The painters of Ogunquit? Is that? No, that's a one.
Ogunquit, yeah. She was in a show, and the show was called The Painters of Ogunquit because there were a lot of women painters, amazingly enough, in Maine. Maine is a very spectacular place, and so she saw a lot of drama, I think, in her drawings that she did at that time in Maine. And the museum, there's an art museum in Ogunquit that produced a show featuring all these women painters.
That's amazing. So they just don't make the headlines, but they're there.
Right.
It's not like it's so funny now in the world too. It's like chefs were men at one time, but it's always the woman needs to be in the kitchen with the bun in the oven. And then it's like women are now making headlines as chefs and winemakers, but they were doing it for centuries. It's like moonshiners and bootleggers were not just men. They were women, even though women put temperance in, So it's so interesting to see how we just weren't documented, but it didn't mean that we weren't doing it and shouldn't be recognized for what we did. And so that's what I love what we do. It's like, and today you got us 3 artists for the price of 1. We got 3 artists to talk about today, which is excellent. But to see, how she connected with the different landscapes too. I mean, all the way to Maine.
Right.
But that's geology again for her, I think, when she went up there.
Yes. I think, she would hear about these places and they would sound good to her. And so she would pick up and travel. And as we can see from the work she left, she went to a lot of places. And I think she really appreciated the landscapes that were very dramatic and gave her, the curved landscape, I think, appealed to her as a feminine element. It's an outgrowth of her original work, which was female figures.
So there's a portrait that I think you did in when you were doing your research, because Victoria's article has a list of references, and there one is at Sotheby's, and it's a portrait of her. Is it a self-portrait that she did? Khalil Gibran did of Adele. And I didn't know.
Khalil Gibran did that of her. She's a subject in that painting.
Okay, so now we've got 4 artists going on, because I've always looked at him as a philosopher / poet. Smart.
More than that. Yeah.
So I'm now thinking he did his art in The Prophet, in his books too, like The Prophet and things.
He could have. Yeah. He could have done all those. I think interesting poets look at things and in a way maybe that's akin to how artists look at life, like at objects. And I think he looked at her. He would not have said, he would not have described himself as an artist, but yet he did this really nice portrait of her.
That's
I think
amazing.
Because he was interested in her. She was an interesting person to him. And I think, almost anybody can communicate what they see. It takes some practice, but I'm a strong believer that most people don't have the opportunity or the belief that they can draw well because they haven't tried it.
I want this picture. I think look at the lighting in the hair, just even the glasses being the lighting and wow. I'm totally blown away.
Yes.
I want this. Just in that her face is complex, yet she seems very pure and honest, soft, but stern. You know what I mean? As a human.
Yep.
And focused. She's focused. She's driven, but still soft. That's an amazing picture. That is, I had no idea. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to go start looking him up. Now, you see, you got me on 4 rabbit holes.
Okay, yeah. But no, that picture ought to go with the article.
I know. I don't know if it's legal, but everyone, I'll link to it. It's a thing with Sotheby's. So, I don't want to get sued by Sotheby's. Thank you very much. I think they have more money than we do.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll donate the picture to the museum. Why don't we ask them to do that? That's what we need. Cause, but yeah, she did go all over, and it just seems that she did have some notoriety in a way, but not like what we'd want for her. Maybe she didn't want it either. I don't know. She seems to be someone who just, even traveling the way she did was not a thing back then.
No, it wasn't. I think it was probably when she was doing a lot of this stuff in the 19th. So she had probably 17 years more of ability to work, and she took advantage of it.
It's amazing. That is amazing when you think about it. She went for it. Hey, it's not always done this way, and I'm going to do it anyway. And her art is beautiful. Thank you for how did you first find out about her?
Well, I saw her work, and I did a double take because I didn't know about her. I saw her online at an art auction that I was looking at, and there was work, and it was affordable, and so I purchased it. I purchased it some years ago, and I didn't see any more of her work for a long time. I think she produced a lot, but unfortunately, things happen. People move. Things get framed badly. They get destroyed, not on purpose, but just because people don't know how to have things framed. And of course, during the period of time when she was working, all the mats on pictures like hers were acid-based mats. So they ate the pictures. The mats were bad. That's why everybody right now that's listening that has any kind of artwork that's in a frame that has a mat included in the frame, you ought to check those mats and make sure that they're not burning the artwork. You need an acid-free mat. Since about 1960, they're easy to find. Everything done in a frame shop is done with acid-free now, but it didn't used to be back in the 30s and 40s and the 20s. So a lot of times when you find old pictures that are really beautiful pieces of art, they're not in good shape because of the matte burns.
That's interesting, man, because I always think, I always saw acid free and I was like, all right, so they're not taking acid. No, the color, it's not a tie-dye frame.
That too.
Yeah, really. But I never.
Don't use either one.
Yeah, you see terms and you just go, yeah, I know what it is. And you really don't. You have no clue.
No.
That would be me in that circumstance. So it's like, oh yeah, I know acid free. Yeah. People want acid free. They don't.
One of the things you can think about it as, if you get an old newspaper that was published in the 1800s, it's still in good shape. But if you get a newspaper that was published in 1950, it's starting to break down. It's because it's made with acid paper.
Wow, because we had acid stuff.
It gets yellow and brittle.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You've seen it. So it's the same reaction when you put a piece of acid paper next to nice paper. The acid paper is not going to help the good paper.
Wow.
It's going to be bad. So anyway, that's a little tip.
Wow. You made me even think about our old magazines, because there was certain paper that aged quickly, and then we got this acid something, and it was white. It was high-end newsprint white. And you knew us through that time frame. Our newsprint was enhanced, and so was our printing bill. But it didn't maybe on the edges from like sunburn or stuff, but it really on the interior stayed good. I'll find out when we go to our storage unit again. and see how those little
Okay.
puppies are holding up. I never thought of that. And now you're making me have this urgent feeling to go and scan everything and digitize it, because we have not, but we will. Thank you for that.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
quite busy work, but I think that's great advice
Glad
for
to
everyone.
help out.
Hey,
Glad to
listen,
make you worry.
well, I'd like to get you a building. So can we get the building? Then we can go see Adele Watson's art in the building. That would be the way. That would be the coolest thing.
I'm all for that.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Victoria. It's always fun having you on the show. And again, everyone, Victoria's here every third Saturday, and you can keep up with her at victoriachick.com. Thanks so much, Victoria.
Oh, you're welcome. Talk to you next month.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. You can view Victoria Chick's artwork at victoriachick.com. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com.